afternoon, everyone. Welcome to HANA's second quarter review. So I'll start off with talking about our second quarter performance. As you can see from the slide, we had a strong rebound in profitability compared to the first quarter, up 33% to 785 million and up 186% on the quarter from 275 million baht. Year on year, sales increased 8% from 3.4 to 6.4 to 6.9 billion. Operating profits up 33% from 590 to 786 million. And the margins increased 2% from 9 to 11. We generated a cash of 1.2 billion, up 24%, and net profits up 159% to 635 million baht. On the quarter, sales were up 7% and operating profits were up substantially 186% from 275 to 786. Moving on to each individual company. So our microelectronics business in Lamphun had a very good performance in the second quarter. We were 3% up on the quarter and 20% up on the year. And this was mainly driven by strong automotive, medical, and commercial. Our test and measurement business was a bit flat, but we saw improvements in IoT, and industrial continues to improve. Medical business also increased because of new regulations allowing hearing aids to be sold over the counter. And we have a strong focus on cost control and productivity, and this helped us to improve the profitability. If we look at global automotive sales, you can see how they have remained quite strong in the second quarter, despite increases in interest rates. And most people thought that the interest rate would have a negative impact on the automotive business. But especially in America, because unemployment still remains low, people are still spending money because they feel confident they have a job, despite the high interest rate. Moving on to Jiaxing, our micro business saw a rebound, a 15% increase on the quarter and a 13% increase on the year. Most of that came through our access control business, which was very weak during the COVID period, but has now come back because people are going back to schools, offices, public buildings, hospitality. So this has improved substantially from the COVID period. We saw a good demand in IoT products, and we had good control over our SG&A, and that helped us with the bottom line. Also, a weaker RMB also improved our margins because you know the Chinese economy is now weak, and the Chinese central bank reduced the interest rate, and that makes the renminbi weaker. PCs continue to decline, 16.6% in the second quarter. I think now that this is starting to bottom out, but as I have told you many times before, our PC business is not the focus for HANA. Moving on to our IC business in UTR. So in the first quarter, this business was very difficult. It was down 18% year on year, and the operation actually registered a loss in the UTR. But in the second quarter, we improved our revenue up 9%, but still down 13% on the year. So the loading in the UTR is still weak, but has improved from the really low period in the first quarter. And in terms of units, we registered an increase of 4%, and our strong focus on cost reduction and productivity and the improvement in the exchange rate helped that division to return to profitability, having had a loss in the first quarter. We believe that the customers' inventory levels are quite low now, but in terms of improvement going forward, we don't think there's going to be a sharp increase. We may have reached the bottom, but we don't see a big increase going forward, and that's particularly because of the concerns over the Chinese economy going forward. We see lots of opportunities due to the US-China geopolitical tensions, and the opportunities coming from de-risking are coming now more and more, but it will take time for them to become a reality. Moving on to the IC operation in China, Jiaxing, we saw a 19% increase in the quarter, but still down 2% year on year. Some improvement, but I would say overall, the Chinese demand still remains very weak and no meaningful recovery for the mobile phone business. And that's where most of our exposure is. Our RFID business has started off. We await certification from the US, from the Auburn University. We expect this this month, but we've actually already started production. Our LED modules, which are sold into the China market, were weak, but still up year on year. And I would say the outlook still remains relatively weak given the Chinese economic situation. If we look at the loadings, this is the average million wire bonds per month for our IC business. So after 4 consecutive reductions, we finally see it picking up in the second quarter of this year, which is good news. Global smartphone business for the second quarter declined 11%. And I would say that the smartphone business is going to remain weak throughout the rest of this year, in my opinion. In terms of total inventory versus utilization for the IC business, you can see that the fab, that is the fabrication, the wafer fab, continues to drop. And what that means is that inventories will fall further. This is important to understand where we are in the cycle. So it's possible that we may see now a beginning of an improvement in the second half of this year. But given the weakness in the Chinese economy, I'm not sure how much that will return. And in the second quarter, according to the semiconductor statistics, the drop was 17% year on year, but that is an improvement from the 21% in the first quarter year on year. So what you're seeing is that whilst this year is a substantial drop from last year, the level of the drop is starting to reduce. Gartners are expecting the overall worldwide semiconductor revenues to decline 11% for 23. So that will be a smaller level of reduction given the big drop we saw in the first half of this year. And then going forward, they're expecting in 2024 a recovery. If you look at this chart, after the red line, you see the gray line, the forecast starts to pick up. So the cycle goes down and hits the bottom and starts to move back up again. This is the logic, but it's not sure, of course, the future. Moving on to Ohio in the USA, we saw a 1% drop on the quarter, but still up 9% on the year. Our RFID tire tags has been a bit slow in the first half, but we expect to see a much improved output in the second half of this year. Our inlay business, which is the fastest growing RFID segment, did grow, but not as fast as we had hoped. And the reason is that these items go onto everything that's sold in the retailer, and the retailers are still weak in the first half of this year in America. But we expect that to start picking up in the second half of the year. Okay. We have bought a new building, and we are in the process of moving from our existing operation to the new building. So this has, of course, had additional costs and impact our profitability, but we expect that to be over by the end of this year. And the outlook for the third quarter is that we expect an improvement led by tire tags, and inlays also will support a better second half as well. So the RFID asset tags is one of the growth segments for the HANA Group, and it's projected to grow about 12% a year CAGR over the next 5 or 6 years. Here's a picture of our RFID auto tagline in our factory in HANA Jiaxing in China. Moving on to Cambodia, revenues were up 57% on the quarter and 322% on the year. Now, this looks like a big increase, and part of that was due to the fact that we have to change our billings from consign model to a turnkey model. But there was some genuine real growth as well, and I'm delighted to report that HANA Cambodia has finally turned profitable in this quarter. So it's taken a long time, to be honest. It's been a challenging operation, but we are now contributing to the HANA group profitability. And this was primarily due to the increase in sales, a reduction in cost, and merging the management of Cambodia with Lamphun so that we can share a lot of the management costs so that we can reduce the overall cost going forward. The third quarter, I think, still remains a little bit flat, but we see more opportunities due to the China de-risking. A lot of people want to move away from China, and Cambodia and Thailand offers that opportunity. So here's a chart to show you, how our end application products change from the second quarter to, last year to this year. You can see telecom drops from 30 to 26. Automotive increased from 17 to 21. Industrials were down. Opto was flat. RFID was up. Consumer down slightly. Computer down. And medical increased. So in summary, the core business for the second quarter, our profits rebounded. First of all, we were supported by a weakening of the Thai baht, which was the opposite situation in the first quarter. So this reversed, and that helped support our margins, because as you know, when the Thai baht strengthens, we have to revise our material cost, inventory, and accounts receivable. And when the Thai baht weakens, you do the opposite. So we have a positive effect because the Thai baht weakened in the second quarter versus the first quarter. But if you look at the year-on-year increase in 33% in operating profits versus an 8% in revenue only, we can account for that because of the strong cost control and higher productivity, despite having to pay 13% increase in utility costs. So a good operational performance from our team. Okay, I think that our diversified EMS portfolio was also very beneficial, particularly with the strength on our automotive business. And of course, the UTO returned to profitability after we downsized. You may remember in the first quarter, unfortunately, we had to lay off 260 staff and have to pay them, of course. And so that, that's a big cost in the first quarter, but you get the benefits going forward, and that started in the second quarter as well. And of course, as I mentioned, HANA Cambodia is now profitable. And the demand drivers were, as I mentioned, our IC business stopped declining and stabilized, and loadings increased 4%. Strong demand for our EMS business from automotive. IoT recovered, and medical also improved as well. And RFID came back after the COVID situation and supported the growth as well. The outlook for the third quarter, I think that the OSAT demand may not accelerate, and this is due to the China growth concerns. You may know that China's going through a difficult time now, and in fact, a lot of economists believe that China is already in a deflationary situation. However, the US economy continues to remain strong. And it's quite interesting because at the beginning of the year, everyone thought the US economy would be weak because of the rising interest rates, and the Chinese economy would be strong because they changed the policy of COVID. But it's the opposite situation. The US economy has surprised and remained strong despite high interest rates because unemployment remains low. People feel confident to spend money because they have a job. Whereas in China, because of the issues with property, a lot of Chinese people don't want to spend money because they're worried about their savings. Okay, our EMS business continues to remain strong, and I think this will be one of the main drivers in the second half of this year. I think car prices are now coming down, because a lot of car companies understand that the higher interest costs will be make it difficult for people to buy new cars, and they're reducing prices to help support the demand. Okay, as I mentioned, a weak economic situation in China will also impact global growth. And I have some concerns about that, but the US economy holding well. RFID expected to show higher growth. Our tire tag business and medical business also expected to be strong in the second half. And a lot of activity due to the decoupling, de-risking issue. It's clearly happening, and I think Thailand, and including HANA, will be a beneficiary of this, but it will take time to move over the business from China to Asia in particular. So you can see the exchange rate has improved for us due to Thai politics and a steady Fed rate. But of course, this may change after the political situation in Thailand starts to stabilize. In terms of our capital expenditure liquidity, we generated 1.2 billion baht versus 970 last year. So it's an increase of 238, 24% up, which is good. We spent 930 million in the second quarter compared to 600 million. And we had net cash of 3.2, down from 4.5 billion. Now, moving on to silicon carbide. So PMS registered a reduction quarter on quarter of 11%, albeit a 316% increase, of course, from the low base last year. And the reason for that reduction is that we are currently focused on the Chinese economy, and 80% of our output relates to silicon. The silicon carbide is still only 20% of our manufacturing output. And because of that weakness in the Chinese economy, those sales fell down. And we have to wait until the fourth quarter when our new equipment starts to come in and can start increasing the deliveries of our silicon carbide, MOSFET, and other devices. So we're expecting to be weak in the third quarter, but much improved in the fourth quarter, because the demand for silicon carbide is still remaining very strong, but the demand for our silicon product has weakened because of the overall economic situation. We also have a new silicon range called medium voltage, MV, which starts to ship in the fourth quarter, and that will help the weakness in the other silicon products. So overall, our silicon carbide growth is constrained by production and not demand, but our silicon carbide sales is impacted from demand. The SiC market is still expected to show a very good CAGR growth of around over 40%, and it still remains the bright spot in the semiconductor industry. And the major sectors that we focus on are four main areas: PV inverter, which has a strong CAGR growth, 18%, data centers, around 8% CAGR, EV charging stations, which substantially lag the growth of EV cars. So the CAGR growth is over 40%. And then, of course, the EV onboard, which is around 30%. Okay. We hope that by Q1 next year, we can start to get qualified, because we're in the process of qualification on the EV onboard automotive customers. And as you can see, the EV sales in the second quarter hit another record. It continues to grow quite dramatically, up 36% compared to last year. But you can see here from this blue box that the EV charging station in China is now 1.4 million units. But if you look at Europe and the US, it's much, much less. And what this means is that you have far more EV cars than you have EV charging station. And if you look at this chart, you can see the dark blue line is the cumulative growth of EV sales, but the pink line is the EV charging station. So you can see the growth of EV cars going up very fast, much faster than charging station. And you see the ratio, of course, goes up. So that means the opportunity for growth for the charging station is very, very high. The top EV brands in the first half of this year was led by BYD, followed by Tesla. And now world EV sales account for 19% of global sales. So the acceleration of EV is really starting to move very quickly. We are continuing to ramp up by investing in our new equipment, and we have a revenue forecast for our PowerMaster business, where we are saying that we plan a $20 million sale this year, and then we more than double in 2024 to 45 to 48, and in 25 doubling again to 90 plus, and 26 to over 100 million. So that is a very steep growth rate, which should be very challenging, but we're working very hard to try and achieve this level of growth. Thank you now. So I will answer some of the questions that have been sent in.
โอเคนะคะคำถามแรกที่เข้ามานะคะถามว่าภาพรวมธุรกิจและอุตสาหกรรมในQ3 นะคะมองว่าจะมีทิศทางที่ดีกว่าเมื่อเปรียบเทียบกับ quarter on quarter และ year on year หรือไม่อย่างไรจากปัจจัยอะไรนะคะ
So I think you know already by now that HANA does not give specific projections, future projections, but as you hope you have understood as I've done my presentation, that the third quarter still looks, particularly from our EMS business, quite good. And we expect our OSAT business, that's the chip packaging, to still remain a little bit weak because of concerns over the China growth.
คำตอบของคุณลิชานะคะโดยปกติฮาน่าก็จะไม่ได้ถึงขั้นบอกว่าแนวโน้มหลักๆจะเป็นไปได้อย่างไรแต่ว่าสิ่งที่มองเห็นนะคะในส่วนของ EMS business นะคะมีแนวโน้มที่ดีแต่ส่วนของ OSAT business เนี่ยก็ยังไม่ค่อยดีเท่าที่ควรเนื่องจากเศรษฐกิจของทางประเทศจีนนะคะคำถามต่อไปนะคะแนวโน้มยอดขายในควอเตอร์3นะคะมีทิศทางที่จะเติบโตกว่าเมื่อเปรียบเทียบกับควอเตอร์ on quarter และ year on year ด้วยหรือไม่มากน้อยแค่ไหนอย่างไรจากปัจจัยอะไรนะคะ
Yeah, well, I think this is the same question really as the first one. So once again, as I said, we see continued strength from our PCBA business, whereas our semiconductor business, I think, will see some slight improvement, but we don't see a V-shaped recovery because of the concerns of the China market.
ค่ะคำถามคล้ายๆกันนะคะคำตอบของคุณริชาร์ดก็คือผลิตภัณฑ์กลุ่มที่เป็น PCBA นะคะมีแนวโน้มที่ยังแข็งแกร่งอยู่แต่ส่วนในส่วนของSemiconductor เนี่ยก็อย่างที่อธิบายไปเบื้องต้นว่ายังไม่เห็นแนวโน้มที่จะเป็นเติบโตโดยเป็น V shape นะคะเพราะว่าเศรษฐกิจของทางประเทศจีนนะคะคำถามต่อไปนะคะแนวโน้มอัตราการใช้กำลังการผลิตในควอเตอร์ที่3โดยรวมอยู่ระดับเฉลี่ยประมาณเท่าไหร่นะคะ
Well, our capacity in the third quarter won't really change compared to the second quarter. We are not expanding our OSAT business because we have enough capacity. We are adding some capacity for our EMS business as we get new work. So there will be some increase there, but the biggest increase in capacity will be on silicon carbide.
คำตอบนะคะกำลังการผลิตส่วนของที่เป็น OSAT เนี่ยยังเหมือนเดิมนะคะเพราะว่าเราไม่ได้มีคำสั่งซื้อเพิ่มเติมมากเท่าไหร่แต่ในส่วนของที่เป็น EMS ก็เพิ่มกำลังการผลิตนิดหน่อยแต่ที่เพิ่มมากที่สุดก็คือส่วนของที่เป็นซิลิคอนคาร์ไบด์นะคะคำถามต่อไปนะคะปัญหาคอขวดในการผลิตซิลิคอนคาร์ไบด์ในควอเตอร์ที่3มีทิศทางเป็นอย่างไรบ้างนะคะ
So the bottleneck for our increase in silicon carbide output relates to the necessary equipment, and the lead time to order equipment ranges between 12 to 18 months. Now, we have placed orders for equipment a long time ago. In some cases, they've been delayed, but it is coming in now. And we have already one very important piece of equipment for silicon carbide increase already in-house being qualified, which is expected to come into production by the beginning of Q4, which will help to reduce the current bottleneck of our output.
ค่ะส่วนของซิลิคอนคาร์ไบด์นะคะปัญหาหลักๆที่เป็นปัญหาคอขวดคือเรื่องเครื่องจักรเพราะว่าการเวลาสั่งซื้อเนี่ยส่งเวลาในการส่งเนี่ยใช้เวลาถึง12-18 เดือนแล้วเราก็สั่งไปบ้างแล้วแต่ว่าบางเครื่องก็มีปัญหาที่ส่งได้ไม่ตรงตามเป้าที่เราตั้งไว้แต่อย่างไรก็ตามนะคะตอนนี้เครื่องเนี่ยเข้ามาแล้วโดยเฉพาะเครื่องที่เป็นเครื่องหลักนะคะซึ่งเราทำการ qualify ไปเรียบร้อยแล้วก็จะเริ่มเพิ่มเป็น production ได้ต้นปี2024ค่ะคำถามต่อไปนะคะแนวโน้มการรักษาระดับอัตรากำไรขั้นต้นและอัตรากำไรสุทธิในควอเตอร์ที่3และsecond half นะคะครึ่งปีหลังนะคะคาดว่าจะอยู่ที่ระดับเฉลี่ยประมาณเท่าไหร่
So, well, I mean, but the first thing, pray for a weak Thai baht that will help maintain the level of margin and profitability, because as you know, the exchange rate has quite an important impact. The overall business demand, we hope, can be maintained compared to the second quarter. And if that's the case, then we have a good chance of delivering a decent level of profitability. Further, we concentrate on our productivity. We hear about the minimum wage increase, but we don't know when that's going to take effect. So this is an endless challenge in order to offset the rising costs in labor. So it's a focus on productivity, and if the Thai baht is weak, then we can still produce a reasonable profit level.
คำตอบนะคะด้วยข้อที่เป็นส่วนดีที่ว่าเกิดขึ้นที่เรามองเห็นก็คือเรื่องค่าเงินบาทที่อ่อนตัวก็จะเป็นสิ่งที่ทำให้กำไรในส่วนของบริษัทเนี่ยมีแนวโน้มที่ดีและคำสั่งซื้อที่มีแนวโน้มที่ดีก็จะสามารถที่ทำให้เรามองเห็นผลกำไรที่ดีนะคะข้อกังวลที่เรามีก็เรื่องค่าแรงขั้นต่ำซึ่งยังบอกไม่ได้ว่าค่าแรงขั้นต่ำเนี่ยจะรัฐบาลใหม่จะเป็นยังไงแต่ว่าเราก็พยายามเต็มกำลังในเรื่องของการเพิ่มผลผลิตของเรานะคะคำถามต่อไปนะคะแนวโน้มต้นทุนวัตถุดิบในควอเตอร์ที่3มีทิศทางเป็นอย่างไรบ้างปรับตัวดีขึ้นกว่าเมื่อเทียบ quarter on quarter หรือไม่อย่างไรวางกลยุทธ์ในการรับมือไว้บ้างอย่างไรนะคะ
So in terms of cost of materials or the material shortages, which was very much an issue during the COVID lockdown period, I think this is pretty much behind us. We because of the weakness overall, particularly on the OSAT business, the lead times for materials relating to this business have improved substantially. So in general, I don't see any major issues with supply chain problems. The other thing is logistics, which was also a problem during the COVID, is much improved. So I think this problem is not a problem anymore.
ค่ะส่วนของเรื่องวัตถุดิบนะคะเรามองเห็นว่าตอนนี้หลังโควิดมาแล้วทั้งไม่ว่าจะเรื่องการส่งวัตถุดิบหรือการขนส่งทั้งหลายนะคะดีขึ้นกว่าตอนช่วงโควิดอย่างมากเพราะฉะนั้นเราไม่เห็นว่าตรงนี้จะเป็นปัญหาอะไรกับเราแล้วนะคะช่วงนี้ข้อต่อไปนะคะงบลงทุนในปี2023วางไว้อย่างไรในช่วงครึ่งปีแรกใช้ไปแล้วเท่าไหร่รองรับโครงการอะไรไปแล้วบ้างและในครึ่งปีหลังจะใช้เงินลงทุนอีกเท่าไหร่รองรับอะไรบ้างค่ะ
So in the first half, I think we spent probably about 1.4 billion baht. We will expand that significantly in the second half most of which will go to the increase in equipment for expanding silicon carbide. And we will be increasing that investment by over 2 billion baht between now and the middle of next year.
ค่ะตอนนี้นะคะเราลงทุนไปเป็นเงินไทยประมาณ 1,300 ถึง 1,400 ล้านในส่วนของเครื่องจักรสำหรับซิลิคอนคาร์บายด์และเราก็ตั้งใจว่าจะลงทุนเพิ่มอีกประมาณ 2,000 ล้านบาทนะคะในส่วนนี้นะคะโอเคนะคะคำถามต่อไปมีโอกาสเห็นการmerge and acquisition หรือ joint venture หรือหา synergy ใหม่ๆเพิ่มเติมอีกหรือไม่ปัจจุบันมีดีลที่อยู่ระหว่างการเจรจาหรือศึกษามากน้อยแค่ไหนเกี่ยวเนื่องกับอะไรบ้างมีประมาณกี่ดีลเบื้องต้นคาดว่าในครึ่งปีหลังจะได้เห็นความชัดเจนอย่างน้อย 1-2 ดีลหรือไม่
Well, there are always opportunities for partnerships or joint ventures. It's nothing that I can speak of at this point in time, but we always keep an open mind, and from time to time, we are approached with opportunities which we evaluate, but I have nothing to announce at this point in time. ค่ะเรื่องส่วนของ opportunity นะคะเราก็หาโอกาสที่จะไปดูมีดีลกับบริษัทต่างๆแต่ว่าตอนนี้ยังไม่มีคำประกาศอะไรนะคะตอนนี้เรายังไม่สามารถที่จะประกาศอะไรได้ตอนนี้ค่ะคำถามต่อไปนะคะ So regarding succession, I think that we are open to both international or locally sourced replacement. Subject to my health and my ability to perform and lead the company, I'm still good for a number of years yet, but I definitely, it's something that we are already starting to consider, and we will consider both internally and externally when the time comes. ค่ะคำถามอันนี้เกี่ยวกับเรื่องผู้สืบทอดการบริหารบริษัทนะคะคุณริชาร์ดตอบว่าในตอนนี้เนี่ยคุณริชาร์ดด้วยสุขภาพอะไรต่างๆนานาคุณริชาร์ดเนี่ยยังแข็งแรงและทำงานได้อีกหลายปีแต่ยังไงก็ตามนะคะบริษัทก็มีแพลนทั้งหา successor ที่เป็นทั้งคนในและคนนอกนะคะโอเคข้อต่อไปนะคะในปีถึง2ปีมีแผนจะลงทุนหรือขยายกำลังการผลิตใหญ่ๆหรือไม่อย่างไรนะคะ Any plan for a big investment in the next 1 or 2 years? Well, currently, the majority of our investments will be to increase our silicon carbide operation. HANA is always looking for new opportunities, and if something comes which we think is the right direction for us, we will definitely consider to make the necessary investment in order to grow whatever opportunity comes. So in general, this is our job to grow the business and invest for the future, but I can't be more specific at that at this point in time. ค่ะคำตอบตัวนี้นะคะณตอนนี้เลยโฟกัสของเราจะอยู่ที่เพิ่มกำลังผลิตซิลิคอนคาร์บายด์แต่ยังไงก็ตามนะคะบริษัท HANA เนี่ยมองหาโอกาสดีๆอยู่ตลอดเวลาและนี่ก็เป็นส่วนหนึ่งของงานของบริษัทเลยที่จะหาโอกาสที่ดีเพื่อที่จะเพิ่มในธุรกิจของเรานะคะคำถามต่อไปนะคะสินค้าใหม่เริ่มผลิตขายหรือยังครับ The new product as it they sell silicon carbide. Oh, okay. Well, so in our silicon carbide range, we launched the silicon carbide MOSFET, which is the most important device, and that is having a good acceptance in the market. And of course, we will continue to develop that product with different versions. The next version will be essentially the same type of product, but we plan to reduce the cost by re-engineering the product to make it smaller so you can get more units from a given wafer. So this is the next direction because we anticipate the cost and the competition for the market will continue to grow.
ตอนนี้นะคะสินค้าใหม่เนี่ยที่เราเริ่มผลิตเนี่ยเป็นซิลิคอนมอสเฟตซิลิคอนตัวนี้เนี่ยเรากำลังพัฒนาเป็นหลายๆรุ่นหลายๆแบบนะคะแล้วสิ่งที่เราทำอีกอย่างคือการลดต้นทุนการผลิตอย่างต่อเนื่องนะคะเพื่อผลกำไรที่ดีที่สุดของเรานะคะ
Also, as I mentioned earlier in my presentation, we also have a silicon, not silicon carbide, new product called medium voltage. This is a device which not many companies have, and we think has a high potential, and we will launch that in Q4 this year. So we are quite excited that this could be, have a good reception in the market.
ค่ะส่วนเรามี product ตัวสินค้าตัวใหม่ที่เราตั้งใจว่าจะrelease ภายใน Q4 นะคะภายในไตรมาสที่4ปีนี้เป็นซิลิคอนนะคะไม่ใช่ซิลิคอนคาร์ไบด์ medium voltage นะคะตัวนี้
We also, for our core business, we are expanding to assemble all these power management products. So a lot of the products that will be produced in PowerMaster will be assembled by HANA Jiaxing and later on by HANA Ayutthaya as well. So we have to invest in a new range of packaging capabilities.
ค่ะแล้วก็ส่วนของบริษัทส่วน business หลักของบริษัทนะคะเราเพิ่มยอดผลิตกำลังงานผลิตในส่วนของเป็น power management เพราะฉะนั้นเนี่ยproduct ที่เราทำที่ PMS ในปัจจุบันที่เราทำที่ HANA Jiaxing ในอนาคตเราก็จะมาทำที่ HANA Ayutthaya ด้วยนะคะมีคำถามเพิ่มเติมไหมคะ
So if no further questions, maybe I could, as we just have a few minutes left, summarize. So I am very happy for the strong rebound in profitability from the first quarter. I know everyone is asking, can we maintain this level of growth going forward? It's a big increase and it will not be easy to do, but you can see that with a strong focus from our manufacturing team, and if the exchange rate helps us, we can achieve quite good results.
ค่ะผู้ริชาอยากจะสรุปนิดนึงว่าถ้าไม่มีคำถามนะคะว่าตอนนี้ด้วยบริษัทนี้ค่อนข้างที่จะยินดีที่เราเห็นผลประกอบการของควอเตอร์2ของเราที่มันพุ่งกลับขึ้นมานะคะจาก Q1 แล้วก็ด้วยโฟกัสที่ทุกส่วนของโรงงานผลิตของเราที่เรามีนะคะทำให้เห็นว่าแนวโน้มของกำลังการผลิตทำให้เรามีผลประกอบการที่ดีและเราเชื่อว่านะคะตรงเนี้ยส่วนของที่เป็นค่าเงินบาทก็มีส่วนช่วยทำให้ผลประกอบการของเราดีนะคะ
Also, as I'm sure you understand from listening to me, that our big focus is on growing the business in our silicon carbide business in Korea, because today that division is generating quite substantial losses. So if we can improve and meet our targets, our forecast targets, growth targets, we can reduce that loss. And our target is to break even by the end of 2025 or early 2026. And if we can achieve that, that will help substantially in driving the group's profitability because, of course, we consolidate less loss into the overall group's performance.
ค่ะคุณชาติบอกว่านะคะจุดประสงค์หลักตอนนี้คือเราต้องการที่เพิ่มกำลังการผลิตซิลิคอนคาร์ไบด์ที่ประเทศที่ PMS ประเทศเกาหลีเพราะว่าเนื่องจากปัจจุบันเนี่ยส่วนของdivision เนี้ยยังขาดทุนอยู่ค่อนข้างเยอะถ้าเราสามารถที่จะทำให้กำลังผลิตนะคะตามกำหนดที่เราตั้งใจไว้เนี่ยแล้วเราคิดว่ามันน่าจะทำให้ส่วนเนี้ยเท่าทุนได้ภายในปี2025และเป็นส่วนที่ทำให้ยอดขายยอดกำไรของธุรกิจทั้งกลุ่มบริษัท HANA นะคะจะดีมีแนวโน้มที่ดีขึ้นค่ะ
Any other questions?
มีคำถามเพิ่มไหมคะ
Okay, so if no further questions, then
มีคำถามอีกไหมคะ เหมือนจะไม่มีคำถามแล้วใช่ไหมคะ คำถามเพิ่งเข้ามานะคะล่าสุด
both RFID and silicon carbide are the two growth product lines for HANA. I think the biggest potential is silicon carbide, obviously. I think silicon carbide will definitely be a bigger business than the RFID, but the RFID opportunity is also very good because in the future, nearly everything that is sold in a shop will be labeled with an RFID, what we call active tag. So that is huge volumes alone. And the projections for this business is something like over 50 billion of these things a year. So there's big growth opportunities for RFID, but silicon carbide, of course, is a much more expensive item. So in revenue terms, silicon carbide will be much bigger.
ค่ะคำถามนะคะเกี่ยวกับ product ผลิตภัณฑ์ของเราระหว่าง RFID กับ Silicon Carbide นะคะคุณริชาร์ดตอบว่าแนวโน้มทางธุรกิจเนี่ยทั้งคู่ทั้ง RFID และ Silicon Carbide เนี่ยดีทั้งคู่แต่เพราะเราจะเห็นว่า RFID เนี่ยในอนาคตเนี่ยทุกๆสินค้าที่วางขายเนี่ยจะต้องติดRFID tag นะคะซึ่งมองเห็นตอนนี้เนี่ยต่อปีเนี่ยประมาณ50ล้านชิ้นต่อปีนะคะแต่ยังไงก็ตาม Silicon Carbide เนี่ยราคาขายของสินค้าผลิตต่อชิ้นเนี่ยสูงกว่า RFID มากเพราะฉะนั้นเนี่ยSilicon Carbide จะเป็นสินค้าที่มองว่าเป็นหลัก ถ้าเทียบกันระหว่าง RFID กับซิลิคอนคาร์บายค่ะมีคำถามเพิ่มไหมคะน่าจะหมดคำถามนะคะเวลาก็จะหมดแล้วด้วยค่ะ
Okay, so well, anyway, I think we've come to the end now. So thank you very much. And I look forward to talking to you again after the third quarter.
ค่ะคุณริชาร์ดขอบคุณนะตรงนี้นะคะแล้วก็เจอกันอีกครั้งควอเตอร์หน้าค่ะสวัสดีค่ะ